Hello, everyone.
Hey, Carlos, how's it going?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Really excited for another episode. I think this is going to be 25th, something like that, or
Highlight of my
26.
week. I think it's
Yeah. Well,
25. Yeah.
I think. Well, I share with you the stat about how only 1% of podcasts get beyond episode 20, even though this is not official a podcast, but it's kind of a podcast. So I'm proud of ourselves getting this far. And my goal is to get to 50 at least, and then reevaluate. But thanks everybody for keep listening to us. So we're having a blast doing this. So anyway, today we have very interesting topics as usual. So we cannot have one episode without talking about Google. So we'll talk about Google offers some advice for people that has been hit by the HCU. We'll talk a little bit about that. Then Danny Sullivan also replied to some criticism that were expressed via X around forums getting higher rankings for your money, your life queries. So back and forth, classic back and forth between Lily Ray and Danny. Now, ChatGPT also announced that they're making links more prominent. So we'll talk about that briefly, and we want to share with you, as usual, some tips, best practices for how to manage editorial calendars. And the last topic that we're going to share with you is how we 10x our internal content. So we recently made a big push to scale our internal content engine, and we want to share with you how we did that. Hopefully you can maybe pick up some tips from that. So anyway, looking forward to this episode. So let's start with the advice that Google's offering for people hit by the HCU. So, and this is, I don't know if it is a technical question really, but somebody on X was expressing that it wasn't very clear on the Google documentation and the support pages whether the HCU was a site-wide um, system or a single-page system. So what that means is that, are they evaluating the helpfulness of content on a site-wide basis or on a single-page basis? And I guess Google tried to clarify exactly, but they're still, the answer wasn't that clear. But turns out that really the signals for helpfulness are evaluated on a per page, on a page by page. So you can have an article considered helpful. At the same time, you can have another piece of content that is considered unhelpful, and one shouldn't impact the other. I mean, in theory, because it's a page um, it's a page by page signal, or is evaluating a page by page. But Google is also saying that if you have a lot of unhelpful content or very thin content on your site, that might be preventing your good content to rank better. So it's, again, as clear as mud.
I think that's pretty clear, Carlos, right? So each piece is evaluated on its own, but your site health, your overall site, is a factor in every piece you publish.
Yeah.
Not the only factor, but one.
Yeah, and the other thing that they clarify is, if one of your pieces were to lose rankings, sometimes that doesn't mean that you need to fix anything. So there's nothing wrong or broken with your site. What they are saying is that sometimes the system found something that is more relevant for that query. Okay, so the fact that you're losing rankings so doesn't necessarily mean that you did something wrong. It might mean that somebody else did something better. So it's a matter of, are you losing for not doing something, or you're losing because you did something wrong? So I think it's very important to understand that. And really the advice they say is, when there's an algorithm being rolled out, you are better off waiting before making any changes until the algorithm is finished with the rollout, because there's always going to be volatility. So that's a very consistent advice. They always said that. And then you need to make a self-assessment at a page level, and then look at the content and again evaluate its helpfulness. So that was that debate. But again, it's clear that it is at a page level. So again, you can have helpful and unhelpful content in the same site, and shouldn't have a high correlation. But if your site has too much unhelpful content, then it will drag down any other piece of content that might be more helpful. So hopefully this is helpful for people that are listening to this. Okay, so Rick, tell me a little bit more about this debate between Lily Ray and Dan Sullivan around forums and the results on on your amount of your life queries, and there's so much noise around forums and Reddit. So this is fascinating to watch.
Rightfully so, right? And I got to tell you, it looked like Danny Sullivan was maybe getting a little irritated. Uh, if you can read tone in a tweet, then yeah, it seemed like he was getting a little
He's a little
frustrated.
bit crusty.
A
I don't
little
know.
bit,
He
a
comes
little
across a little
bit.
bit crusty. Sorry, Dan,
So
if
Lily
you're
Ray
listening.
tagged him in a post wanting clarification because, as she says, for years now, everybody has been focused on EEAT principles and working really hard to make sure that their content is accurate and helpful and valuable to the readers, particularly with YMYL type of subject matter. And as most everyone knows, recently Google algorithm updates gave a big boost to UGC, particularly forum content like Quora and Reddit,
Hmm.
where if relevant to your search, those discussions are coming up really high in search results. So she gave Danny an example, and if you watch last week's post or video, you'll see I used this example for a different subject matter. And it just so happens she used this example for this one. But she said a search for weight loss used to return sites like CDC, Harvard, Mayo Clinic at the top.
Hmm.
And now these sites are being outranked by Quora and Reddit discussions, which, in all fairness, could be dangerous, right? Could lead to misinformation, could lead to people getting harmful advice. Like you have these sites who've stuck by EEAT principles, being outranked by maybe Bob from up the streets. Great idea that the all McDonald's diet is the way to go for losing weight. Um, so Danny Sullivan responded and ultimately, thanked her for the feedback and said he's passed that along to the ranking team to look at it. But did say that, well, first, no one decided that discussions were going to rank for weight loss query. That the system is automated, and if the algorithm feels that including that UGC is relevant to the query, it's going to do that. Which that led to further discussion, and one of the followers coming out and saying, "Well, I think it's harmful, and I don't see why someone who wants a forum discussion in that query wouldn't simply type Reddit along with weight loss." I mean, yeah, we've all done it 1,000 times, right? If I want to see some Reddit posts, we just add Reddit. Um, well, Danny didn't like that suggestion. He gave a good example, and it was, I guess, from what he says, a personal experience. Just recently, we had a problem with the smart window shades. And he tried to solve it by searching on Google and didn't know whether it was going to be the manufacturer site, a retailer site, or a forum that was going to give him his answer. And ultimately, it was a forum that solved the problem he was having. So he used that as to illustrate I wouldn't have typed Reddit in my query when trying to solve this problem, yet the discussions ending up high did help. But he did acknowledge that it could be, there are potential solutions here, and that no system is perfect and it's going to get better with time. And that down the road from now, we could see queries like, health related subjects, financial related subjects return less UGC at the top of the SERPs, or a disclaimer with those discussions, something along the lines of these discussions describe experiences by people in, with the similar question as you, it's not, these may not be medical professionals, something along those lines. Yeah, I don't know. Carlos, I feel like to the everyday user, um, we've all learned that when we do a search, what comes up at the top is supposed to be, and often is, the most relevant result for our search, right? Especially if you're not in content marketing and you're not jaded and cynical towards Google search results. But that builds a bit of a trust in Google's users that not only are those top results probably the best results, they're likely trustworthy. And by putting discussions up at the top, I think it's creating a false sense of trust in content that isn't vetted, that could be scammy, it could be harmful. And I don't know if right on the page is the right place to put these discussions, and maybe they need to be moved over to the side, where the author box is, something along those lines, so that it's separated from your organic search results. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with you. That can be harmful, and it's also this very discouraging for people really investing and doing the right things to create great content with high EAT that is vetted for medical by medical professionals. Like, put yourself in the shoes of, I don't know, WebMD or Healthline or any healthcare media publisher, where we know they invest sometimes thousands of dollars to create one piece of content, and then you get outranked by Joe Blow from down the street on Reddit. I have the hope that Google will try to write this, because it doesn't look very good, and I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. And disclaimer: I'm not a pro Google. I'll try to be as neutral as possible, but I want to give them a benefit of the doubt that this is one of those things that you make a change. The intent is right. They have good intentions, but you find these nuances, and then they have to correct and iterate until they fix it. So let's see. Let's keep watching to see how this evolves. But great. I love to see the back and forth between Lily Ray and Danny. I think they should just have a
They should
once a
have their
week.
own show. We should invite them
No,
on.
yeah, exactly. No, they should have their own show where they just go back and forth. She complains and he defends, or something like that. That'd be great. All right. So ChatGPT now is going to make links more prominent. When I mean, you're not browsing, but in some of their results. So they came on X and they announced that they're going to show more links. And this is, these are good news for publishers, good news for content creators, because of course there's always been the fear that, okay, if AI powered search takes over the world of search, what's going to happen with links and people that generate traffic via search. So I think it's good news. I think it is, browsing is available on all the paid versions. So I don't think it's available on the free version, but yeah, they're just going to show more links. So I think they're in their way to become more and more a search engine, right? And they're going to be probably very soon be head to head going against Google. I think the OpenAI has now 160 million users, if I
Wow.
recall correctly. So there's 160 million people already using it and probably getting some search results out of it. So it's interesting. I think another reminder for content marketers, SEOs, to start thinking about optimizing for AI powered search, optimizing for ChatGPT, optimizing for SGE. Perplexity, I've been hearing that name a lot lately. So of course, Bing, yeah, still exists, yeah, still around. So yeah. By the way, Microsoft and their sites, Bing and all the other, refer around 5% of the traffic on the web. So when you think about this, it might be a big number. So anyway, we should be continue to prepare for AI powered search. So ChatGPT is going that route. Any additional thoughts on that, Rick?
No, I think, and I've been saying it for a while now that more and more I see people using ChatGPT as a search engine to get more specific answers customized to them, similar to what you would see from GSE if you're on Google, but not quite the same. So I'd be curious to see what that's going to look like. Might have to go on there. Did they say it's coming or it's out?
No, is out. I think it's already available. Let me check here. It doesn't actually talk. It just says we're making links more prominent.
Okay.
So
I'll be
talking
curious to try it
present
out
tense.
with some
Yes.
searches I might have done in Google,
Yeah.
like product comparisons or something, and
Yeah.
see what it brings
I
up.
have found myself going to Gemini, or doing, maybe asking a question to ChatGPT for a very nuanced search, meaning for a multi-layer search. So a question that would have several things in it.
Hmm.
So for instance, I tell Gemini or ChatGPT, I'm trying to do X. How would I go about doing X if B, A, B, and C are my constraints? Right? That would take me 4 or 5 different searches. So I think AI powered search is going to be great for those kind of very long tail searches, like a
It's
very nuanced question.
customized to you
Yeah,
rather than where Google is trying to return what is most relevant to you. AI is returning what is customized to you.
yeah.
And it's so much better at handling those. Here's my scenario, and here's what I want to know. And you get an answer tailored to that. And whether you can trust that answer, whole other subject. But
Yeah, fair enough. But it seems more flexible to for you to give context because there is no way to get context on the search box. Right? I mean,
exactly.
you could, but it's not going to get great results. So anyway, fascinating to see how it continues to evolve. Rick, tell us a little bit about best practices to manage an editorial calendar.
Okay,
So
great.
let's get into the meat and potatoes of this show, which is all about making content marketers better.
Yes. Yeah. Editorial calendar. I think back 5 years ago and how these were, I wouldn't go as far as to say a rarity, but they weren't mainstream for most of our clients. A lot of projects were managed through email or messenger communication with just files flying back and forth and no centralized place. And we really started pushing and encouraging them with clients. And if I had to go look right now, I would feel comfortable saying that 98% plus of our clients are using an editorial calendar at the very least for order submission, order delivery, right? Um, but a real editorial calendar goes so much further than that just method of put in, get back. They serve as really a central hub for your content production workflow. And if used correctly, they can save you a lot of time and make your process more efficient, streamline communication, and keep everything in one place. So I just came up with a list of some random tips that I recommend if they apply to you, you implement in your editorial calendars. The first one I think is pretty obvious, but I still see some that don't have this, and that is a status column. Uh, for every entry, you should have one status box. So a column that's dedicated to status, and it has things like ready for content brief, ready for production, in production, ready for design, needs revision, all of these things. Think about your workflow and all the different stops where somebody new needs to take over and do a thing. There should be a status that aligns with that. Um, and if you don't have that, I do recommend that you get that in rather than relying on a separate tool, uh, like a task based tool, maybe Trello, Asana, to handle that. A simple status bar in your content calendar, if everybody has access to it, it becomes a centralized place for your workflow, can really streamline that process. Second tip is search features. Um, I see a lot of calendars that do volume and even search intent in the editorial calendar itself. So here's keyword volume. We're targeting this keyword for this topic. Here's its volume, its monthly volume. Maybe here's its search intent. I'd say take it a step further and list out the search features available for that query so that your brief creator and then ultimately your writer knows what to optimize for. If your search is getting people also ask or a snippet box, um, that should be listed in your editorial calendar so it can work its way to the brief. If it's giving images, that should be listed. News, any of the features that show up for that primary search term should be listed on your editorial calendar and accounted for in your brief with a strategy on how to optimize for them. Third thing, and this is something we're going to talk about again in a few minutes, Carlos, but develop a cadence using your editorial calendar. What you're going to want to do is break your entire workflow up into segments that hopefully align with weeks. Okay, so it might be pre-production, which could encompass ideation, the keyword research, the ideation, and the brief creation. And let's say we call that pre-production. And then you have production, and that's your write, your edit, your review. And then you have post-production. Let's just go with a three phase workflow here. Post-production could be design, final review, and publishing. Um, what you want to do is align these so that if there are three segments and you work on a 3-week cycle, align your calendar with this, align your statuses with this, so that in any given week, there's content in each of the 3 phases. And each of those phases ends at the end of the week. This results in you publishing predictable content week after week and always knowing 3 weeks ahead what's scheduled to be published. So content in phase 1 is done in week 1, moves on to week 2 production, while the next batch enters phase 1. After that second week, that first batch that was in production moves into post-production. The new batch moves into that second production phase, and the new batch comes into first phase. And so you're always having those 3 segments on the same time frames, at 1 week apiece. That's a weekly is the easiest way to do it. But depending on your structure, on your workflow, and how many segments you need, getting into 4 or 5 weeks, that's kind of a long cycle for publishing. 3 weeks is healthy. Taking it from ideation through publishing in 3 weeks is a good cycle, and it's likely what we're going to be going with in Q2 which I'll talk about in a minute. But use your calendar to set those up. They'll also help with your deadlines. Rather than having scattered deadlines for different people, when you work in these segmented phases, each team, whoever those people are that manage that phase, should have a deadline that's a day rather than a date. So in phase 1, maybe ideation has to be done by Tuesday. Every week, ideation's done by Tuesday. Content briefs are done by Thursday. SME interviews on Friday. Now, you don't have to ever play with dates again and people checking to see when something needs to be done, because once you've done this a few times, you always know. Keywords on Tuesday, brief creation Thursday, SME interview on Friday. It goes into production. Writers know they need to be done by Wednesday, editors by Thursday, QA by Friday. And then the post-production, maybe your designer's done by Tuesday and your WordPress person or your CMS publisher is done by Thursday, whatever the day may be. And it becomes this repeatable, easy to remember process. Put everything in your editorial calendar that is relevant to the creation of that content. If it's needed by or produced by anyone in any of the phases of production, it belongs in the editorial calendar. That means your content brief goes there. If your designer is creating the files and putting them, let's say, in a drive folder for that piece, that drive folder is linked to your editorial calendar. So that everything's there. That way everybody starts to learn that everything I need to do my job for this order, all the resources that I'm going to require are here on this one row via a link. Include a cluster column. This also goes and will be helpful for either your brief creator or if you have somebody specifically determining what your internal linking strategy is going to be for each piece by denoting you likely title your clusters, right? So if you've got 8 different topic clusters in your blog, where will this new piece live? Which cluster does it belong to? That will help your brief creator or your linking strategist determine what type of internal links to get into that content brief for the writer to use, or maybe you do it in post-production. But anyway, it can help inform your linking if you're denoting cluster on the editorial calendar. I got 2 more for you, Carlos. Publish the URL, or put the URL on your editorial calendar. It's always the last step, right? We get it up, well, it's not the last step, but we get it up, we get it published. And I see a lot of calendars where that live link isn't there. the great thing about putting it there is when you have a large team producing content, they're all doing their little part. Many of them don't see the end result. They're not going to your blog and looking for, what got published this week. Putting it on there gets more eyes on it. Eyes from people who are involved in the creation, who are ideally suited to find things that went wrong. So by putting that URL in your editorial calendar after you publish it, it really encourages the team that's working on your internal content to take a look, feel good about what they're doing, that they're creating valuable content, but also say, I pointed something out on this, we didn't get it taken care of. Or I see a problem here. Can we get back in there and get it fixed? So I highly recommend you put that URL on there. And last but not least is, I'm going back to your status column now. You want to tie a status to each stop in your workflow and make the status update, because it can be the most neglected column on a calendar, because oftentimes no one person is responsible for updating the status, right? So what you want to do is, as you end each phase or each step in each phase, the person responsible for completing that step, the final step in their process, is to update the status so that the next person knows it's ready for them. For example, if it goes in your workflow from the QA reviewer, after your writing and editing is done, to a designer, the reviewer should go through the piece, sign off on it. This is great. This is good. It's got design direction in it. I'm done. They go and they change the status to ready for designer. The designer does their thing, and odds are it's the publisher next. Once the files are linked, everything's good. They update the status to ready for publishing. So have everyone responsible for one status update that ends their part of the process will help keep your statuses accurate and let people know immediately when they are up to bat. That this content's mine now. It's time for my step. That's all I've got for you on calendars today. There's so many different ways to use them. If you're not using one, we just published an article that gives some tips on creating an SEO calendar. Has lots of things that I didn't discuss here in it, so check it out. We'll put a link, and it also has a template that you can download to help build your editorial calendar.
Oh, that's
Carlos, any
awesome.
comments on that?
Man, editorial calendars are the start of the show when you are producing content, in terms of getting your cadence and making it predictable, right? It's your roadmap. So they're so important. So all these tips are super helpful. They're also a living tool, meaning that you should adjust it as needed, right? Sometimes uh, you start with something basic, and then you start adding columns or features to your editorial calendar as needed. So yeah, there's some tools out there, some templates. We're gonna post a template, but you got to find the one that works for you and your process and for your needs. We're working on our tech to provide access to an HR calendar that will be embedded in our technology and our service. So more to come on that. But
That's
yeah,
exciting stuff.
very excited to see this. And yeah, editorial calendars, very very important. As I said, like, is the backbone of the process. So good stuff. Thanks, Rick, for that. Okay, so now we can share how we scale up or content production internally. And part of that will be having a great editorial calendar. But so we've always produced content, of course, for our own marketing and for our own efforts, and to provide value to our clients. But last year we decided that we want to really go hard with content. Why? Because, well, we're a content production company and we should walk the talk, and we should use our own internal content also to test many things and to continue to provide value to our audience and our clients. And we want to grow our audience and grow our number of clients. So we want to use internal content as our main path to continue to grow our business. And we always been very very lucky with our own SEO, and we've done a lot of good work on our own SEO. But we said let's double down on that. So we went from producing probably 6 pieces a month to probably over 70 or 80 a month. So we more than 10x that that output in a matter of weeks. And a lot of the credit goes to planning. Like we spent a lot of time planning, and a lot of credit to Rick, who was heading that effort. But a lot of time went into planning. Okay, what are the business goals? Then what are the business goals for the year? Then what are the business goals for the quarter? And then from that, okay, what is the content that we need to create to achieve those goals? So we went into plan that, right? Like we mixed that with our SEO strategy as well. So our content motion is SEO, has a heavy SEO component, but it's also informed by our business goals, our audience, and also our strategy, right? So depending on the client type of clientele that we're focusing on, we're going to produce content that speaks to the audience. So we did a lot. We spent a lot of time in the planning, and then we designed the process. We redesigned the process, and then we resourced the process. Right. So we put the right players on the process. So now how it looks like is we have a very long content calendar where we have or new pieces or refreshes, also ideation and social media. And now we're adding also the newsletter, and we're also adding our videos and whatnot. The other great thing is we also decided or channels, right? So we said we're going to produce content for our blog, we're going to produce content for our newsletter, and we're going to produce content for social media. So the blog content is all in the content calendar as its own thing. Or newsletter, well, this is the one that we're doing every week, and Rick and I have a process for it. But then we also use that content that we create weekly to create social media content, and also to create video clips. So now we're repurposing this content. So from what we do every Friday, the recording, we might get maybe 8 or 10 more pieces of content out of one recording. Okay. And then when we are distributing this newsletter with this video, you're also getting an article that we produce for SEO. So with that, we're really getting all of our content to work together, kind of leverage the different channels, and one piece of content being leveraged across different channels in different formats, of course. So you need to repurpose it and format it for the particular channel. We have a weekly call when we go over, what Rick explained about the editorial calendar. We have a weekly call with everybody involved in the process, get together, look at the status of the different pieces, look at what's going to happen the next week, and talk about any roadblocks. Also, we look at the KPIs. So we have KPIs for new content, all content, how we're doing in social media. We look at the main KPIs, and we adjust as needed. So that's in a nutshell the process. I'm sure I missed a bunch of the details, so that's why, Rick, you need to kind of come in and save me here, because you know more about this process, which you design, than I do. But before that, I just want to say we are really excited about this new motion. We've been into it this year, so really 3 months and a few days, and it's going well in terms of output. It's going well in terms of results as well. We're seeing traction, but a reminder that we're looking at this as a long game. We're not expecting to have, just outstanding performance just right out of the gate. We know that performance will come with time, because content is this great thing that compounds little by little. So just a reminder that that's how we're looking at it. Doesn't mean that you have to look at it the same way that we do, but we highly recommend our audience, our clients, to look at content as a long-term play, not as a short-term play. So, Rick, I'm sure I missed a million things, but what else did I miss that that you think is important to highlight?
Well, I think you undersold it a little bit, because we didn't just 10x, right? And for full transparency, despite the fact that we know how to produce outstanding content, we know how to publish outstanding content, we know how to create a content marketing plan, we were kind of like that really skilled roofer who has a leaky roof with missing shingles, right?
Yeah.
We had marketing heading up our internal production. And he was like, "Hey, I need somebody to help me produce this." So I gave him one of the content managers, but I didn't pay it much mind, and I made sure that content manager knew, your clients come first. So we didn't put our best foot forward, and you called it right. Like, this needs to get better. We've got to drink our own Kool-Aid, right? Or what do you say? You say eat our own dog food.
Yeah, we need to walk the talk.
And you were absolutely right. So not only did we 10x it, we rebuilt it at the same time, to go from this rinky dink as a content manager and then the SEO, go do your thing, to, we're sitting down, we're determining those objectives. We've got people creating briefs, people ideating, SMEs doing their bit to get insights into the briefs. We've got the writers, the editors, the reviewers. We've got a dedicated designer. We've got a dedicated WordPress. Like, we put the right team together. We put a plan together. We know this is how you produce content that performs. Right people, right seat, not skipping, taking shortcuts, doing the right thing to get EEAT centric content that provides value to our users. And we did that at the same time that we ramped up. And it took all of us coming together. We had open channels of communication, heavy leadership involvement. We were there to help clear roadblocks for people, discuss issues, to make sure that we could be successful. It wasn't perfect though, right, Carlos? If you look at Q1, we just did this in Q1, folks. If there was one issue that I think, that we're really targeting now for Q2, it's what I discussed earlier in those phases, in aligning the timing of phases, because we had different phases working at different speeds. So our publishing was unpredictable. We did not know. We knew we were going to publish quite a bit next week, just not what it was yet. And that's what we're going to solve in Q2 to further refine this process. But it's been a journey. It's been fun. We've learned a lot. And like you said, the initial SEO is a long game, but initial results are encouraging. Like what we're seeing, we're having good impact on socials. Good analytics so far from Google on the new stuff that we're publishing. So yeah, I think it looks great.
Yeah, and I think I forgot to mention that. So we scale it up, so our volume or throughput is bigger. We rebuild the whole process, but we also forgot to mention, very important, I think we increase our quality dramatically.
Oh yeah.
Meaning the value and really the quality of the content is much higher than we were producing before, because again, like is not is hypocritical not to create the best content in the world if we are a content marketing platform. So I just couldn't live with myself not thinking that we're not producing best content, and I don't think we're there yet, but we have improved dramatically the quality of our content. So folks, stay tuned. We're going to get better content. We're not done. We're only the beginning, and we'll share this journey with you and how things perform and what are the tips and tricks that we're using. Some more things. So we automated our brief creation or semi-automated or brief creation process, right? So we're using AI with we created our own GPT to help us create AI briefs. And of course, we have a human to finish the brief, pass it on to the writers. But we're using technology, of course, for productivity. And yeah, we'll systematize and make a consistent process so we can scale it up. And in this journey is with you. So please give us your feedback. And no, any feedback is good. So any feedback, you like it, you don't like it, we love to hear from you. So I think we're gonna for the next newsletters, we're gonna embed a rating in the newsletter body, so it's easier, so you don't have to fill out a big survey. But yeah, we love to hear from you. Also, the ask is please follow us on LinkedIn as well and Twitter. Well, I'm sorry, X. Keep forgetting. Yeah, and on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. So yeah, this is again, this is the only ask. We're not trying to sell you anything. We're not putting ads in this. The only ask is please do share this content, like it on LinkedIn, like it on YouTube, whatever you're consuming it, and give us your feedback. Even if you don't like it, then just give us your feedback, which is very helpful for us to get better. So with that, I think we're done for today. Good. We stay under 40 minutes. Yeah, under 40 minutes. Big win. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And until next episode. Bye.
Bye, everyone.